Hello everyone and welcome back to IMO Reviews. Today we are discussing Sympathy for the Devil, directed by Yuval Adler and starring Joel Kinnaman and Nicolas Cage. After arriving at the hospital upon the birth of his child, Joel Kinnaman suddenly has a rather erratic Nicolas Cage as a surprise passenger after a case of mistaken identity. So let's get straight into the positives, and I have to admit, I thought the cinematography was pretty good here. There are some lovely shots in the movie. They've clearly tried very hard to capture a mood and a vibe that fits the narrative, and I think they have done that very well. Joel Kinnaman and Nicolas Cage are surprisingly quite a good matchup. I, for one, don't really rate Joel Kinnaman as an actor. He does really phone it in quite often with the same performance just over and over. But actually here in Sympathy for the Devil, his presence was very well welcomed, because his bland, dry boringness actually managed to act as quite a heavy stone that weighs down Nick Cage's absolutely wild zaniness. He's just the right amount of dull to balance the scales between the two actors. And on that note, Nicolas Cage is having the time of his life here. This is a full-blown classic Cage, and if you enjoy those, well, yeah, you're absolutely going to get your kicks out of this one, because I know I did. But that is sadly it for the positives. I wish there was more, but it's time to get into the cons. I found the sound design to just be so lazy. It relies on this creaky door hinge, squeaky violin, ooh that's eerie sound effect, and it does it so often that it actually became annoying. For the love of God, mix it up just a little bit, would ya? I also found this plot to be so shoddy. It's not just ripping off far better films like Collateral, but what they end up actually doing with it is just lame. And that's very annoying, because you can easily see that this could have been so much more than it is. You can see the gold, it's just beneath this very thin sheet of ice, but I don't know why the film just decides not to go there. And it's worse for it, because without it, it frankly feels aimless. The dialogue is pretty bad, I have to admit. It's not the worst I've ever heard. I have heard a lot worse, but it's still pretty damn bad. I found it absolutely hilarious how often a very heavily pregnant woman seems to be able to call him like every 5 seconds. I'm pretty sure you have more pressing urgencies on your hands right now, dear. But getting back to the dialogue, Nick Cage has this speech near the end of the film that really does resemble a speech from Silence of the Lambs, except for here it's Silence of the Rabbits. And I genuinely can't tell if it's just a very bad and not funny joke on the attempt of the writers, or if the writers are just dumb enough to think that they can steal one of the most famous monologues in cinema history, change the word lambs to rabbits, and no one will notice. Considering how sloppy this film has been, I'm going to assume the latter, and there are so many conveniences in the storytelling. People get shot in the leg but can just miraculously walk. It's fine. That always annoys me when I see it in films, because the obvious answer is, if you actually played it out properly, you'd have so much more suspense and edge of your seat drama. But nope, I also found Sympathy for the Devil to be 30 minutes too long. It hasn't got anything to say or do, and it actively starts to outstay its welcome. And it is simply because the film just continuously tails off. It's an okay, intriguing first hour, but eventually it devolves into this dull nothingness that, well, funnily enough, leads to nothing. I'm going to give Sympathy for the Devil a 4 out of 10. It's a real shame, because there's definitely aspects of the film that do work, but there are also a ton of amateur mistakes in the editing, the sound design, the writing. I forgot to mention one of the most laughable car crashes in a film I've seen for a while, and it is the adding up of all these silly mistakes that frankly makes the film fall over its own shoelaces. If this had more of an aim or a goal, a point to make, a reason to exist, we could have easily had a 7 out of 10, maybe even an 8 if they really landed the plane. But again, because none of that's here, it just becomes a lackluster, underwhelming, nonsensical mess. And by the time the credits roll, frankly, you're disappointed. Thank you for watching this review. Please be sure to hit that like button and hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and please do hit the comment section as well. Have you seen Sympathy for the Devil? What did you think about it? Let me know in that comment section below. And of course, if you haven't had enough of this crazy ginger, well, you can always click on these suggested videos right here and get yourself lost in an IMO wormhole. But if not, take care, and I look forward to seeing you on the next review.